Today, I'm going to walk you through how a temporary supply shock affects the economy using the ADAS model. We'll look at what happens in the short run and how the economy gradually comes back to its long-run equilibrium. We'll start with the baseline. On the horizontal axis, we have real output, often labeled as Y. And on the vertical axis, the price level, often labeled as P. We draw three curves: the aggregate demand curve, the short-run aggregate supply curve, and the long-run aggregate supply curve. The LRAS is vertical with the economy's natural or potential output level, which we'll call Y1. SRAS is an upward sloping and AD slopes downwards. Initially, the economy is at equilibrium, where AD intersects with SRAS and LRAS. We'll call this point E1. At this point, Y equals 1. At this point, output equals Y1, and price level equals P1. In other words, the economy is at full employment or natural rate. Output and inflation / price level is stable at P1. Now we introduce a temporary adverse supply shock. For example, sudden increase in oil prices, natural disaster disrupting production, surprising regulatory costs. This shock raises production costs for many firms, so for any given price level, firms supply less output. In the graph, this is shown by a leftwards or upward shift of SRAS curve to SRAS2, shown right here with the arrows. Because LRAS has not changed and the potential output has not been permanently affected, LRAS stays in the same place. The new intersection of AD SRAS2 gives the short-run equilibrium point E2, right here. E2 output has fallen below Y1, shown as Y2, and P2 is now price level 2 is now greater than price level 1, shown right here. So we get stagflation, which means lower output and higher prices. In the short run, the economy suffers the cost of the shock. Fewer goods and services, higher prices. The output gap is negative, which is output below potential. Because the shock is temporary, the economy will adjust back to its long-run equilibrium, shown here. Over time, firms and workers revise their expectations of costs and price level. Wages, input costs, price expectations adjust. This causes SRS to gradually shift back towards its original position, shown from SRS2 down becomes SRS3, shown by these arrows. The effect SRS1 shifts downwards and rightwards on top of SRS1. Meanwhile, because output is below potential, there's slack in the economy, which is unused labor or capital. That slack tends to reduce cost pressures, helping SRS shift back. Eventually, the SRS curve returns to its original position, bringing the equilibrium back equal to when it was equilibrium 1. We all now know that as equilibrium 3. Output is equal to output 1, which we call output 3, and price level, same as 1, we'll call it price level 3 to show that it has changed back. In the long run, there is no permanent change in the output or price level if the shock really was temporary. A temporary negative supply shock, SRAS, shifts up and to the left. Short run output falls, price level rises, which is stagflation. Because it's temporary and potential output has not been affected over time, the economy self-corrects. SRS shifts back, output reserves to the initial initial price level. In real-world terms, these kinds of shocks are important because they cause cost-push inflation and output loss. But one must distinguish them from permanent supply shocks, which shifts the LRAS curve, that cause lasting change in output or price level. Thank you.